Welcome to Your Voice, Your Impact show, where authentic voices spark real change and bold conversations lead to lasting impact.
That's right. This is a space where we amplify ideas, celebrate stories, and challenge mindsets, because every voice matters and every story has the power to transform.
Whether you're a dreamer, a doer, a change maker, or someone simply figuring it out, we are here for you. Each week, we bring inspiring guests, thought-provoking conversations, and powerful insights to help you own your voice and leave your impact.
I am the energetic EJ, a life and transformational coach, a podcaster, and an event host. I work with women who are accomplished to turn their success into legacy influence.
Hi, my name is Olawale Afolabi, but many know me as Scott Unlimited. I'm a seasoned compere and orator par excellence, passionate about connecting people through words and purpose. Beyond the mic, I'm a business intelligence professional driven by insight, strategy, and impact.
My name is Grace So Amazing. I am an integrative life coach. I help my clients align their psychological, social, and physical well-being. I am the founder of Friends Lean On Global Foundation, a non-governmental organization that is centered on educating people about mental and emotional well-being. Like,
subscribe,
and share. Welcome.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us today on the show. Welcome to another episode on Your Voice, Your Impact show. This is the energetic EJ, and I'm going to bring Gracie right on the stage, and then we'll take it away. We're waiting for Scott to join us. I don't know what happened to whether it's his network or his device, but yeah, it went off just shortly, but he's going to join us soon. But yeah, thank you so much for joining us. Hello, Gracie. How are you doing today? Your mic is muted.
alrighty. I'm very well. I'm excited today. You know, this November month, this movement, this month for men is every week. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to hearing from men talking about men. So yes, I'm super excited today. How was your weekend? And how are you? Just before the show, you were not really feeling well, but you're showing up.
Oh my God.
Well done.
Like, oh my goodness. Like the first half of today had me in shambles. I was like, oh my God. I was just rolling on the bed, crying, like, God, please, I cannot afford to be sick. I cannot. I'm grateful that it's over now. I'm feeling much better. Yeah, but thank God. Hi Scott, how are you?
Hello, good morning, energetic EJ, and good morning, Grace. So amazing. How are you doing?
Wow.
Oh, it's afternoon.
Isn't
right?
that interesting? I was going to say, is it morning where you are? It's afternoon where Grace is, and it's evening where I'm at.
Of course. Good.
Okay,
in my new language in the language I'm just learning, I'll leave you both to guess what language it is. In the afternoon, we say Guten Tag.
Guten Tag, that's Dutch or German?
It's German. I know Guten Morgen, Guten Morgen or something. Yes. Guten something is good morning or something in German.
Yes, German or Dutch, one of those two.
It's German.
In the afternoon, we say Guten Tag.
Okay, say one again. Was it?
In the morning, we say Guten Morgen. Yes. And in the afternoon, we say Guten Tag.
It's German, right?
It's
correct.
German.
Yeah. Das ist genau. Yeah. Ich spreche Deutsch.
Deutsch.
But do they speak Dutch in Germany? Do they speak Dutch in Germany?
Yeah. The language is Dutch.
It's Dutch.
Oh, so German is not the language.
No, in English, the language is German.
German. But
but in its actual language, it's Dutch. Same way the country's name in German is Deutschland, but in English it's German.
It's Germany.
Germany,
wow.
right? Yes.
We learn every day, don't
Honestly,
we?
Thank God, even though the trivia, I would feel woke if it was.
Oh my goodness. Oh, that's good to know. Thank you. So, good thing you say it again.
Kutengi Nicole, guten Tag, Neo.
Guten Tag. How do you say good afternoon in Italian? It's so buongiorno is morning. Buongiorno is morning. And it flew away. Every time I have the opportunity to speak Italian, it just flies away. I know it, like I do, I promise you, but it
But
flies
what do
away
they
anyway.
speak? What's the language in Dubai? What do they speak in Dubai?
In
Arabic.
Arabic,
Arabic, yes.
yeah,
Arabic.
the
So in
shukran, shukran,
Arabic, if in Arabic
maraba.
you want to say good morning, you say sabah al ful or the sabah al khair.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, and that's about Kailo. Oh my goodness. Anyways, isn't it wonderful? The world is beautiful. It's such a great place to be. We want to say thank you to everyone who's joining us. Thank you, Florence. Oh, Florence, I greet you, ma'am. Thank you so much. Florence just completed a beautiful 2-day conference, 2-day virtual conference, which I was the host of on day one on Saturday. And the second day was yesterday, day two, and it was so amazing. Called the Purposeful Woman Conference, and the speakers were just on fire. And so congratulations on the success of your conference, and wishing you all the best as you continue to build your community. All right, guys. So today we're back on the show. This month is dedicated to men. It's called the Movember Moment. And where does Movember come from? Movember is a combination of mustache and November. And it is to celebrate men, is to create awareness about men's mental health and their health generally. So specifically, prostate cancer, as well as mental health challenges that men are facing. And there's statistics that is just heart wrenching, that almost every second, every day, it's every day, or what was it? Was it every hour? Two men every hour. Can you share
Actually,
that
every
statistic?
hour,
Yes, please go
90
ahead.
men. Every hour, 90 men. As a matter of fact, to give you an holistic view, 700,000 men are gone every year. We lost 700,000 men every year, 59,000 men every month, 15,500 every week, 2,500 every day, 90 every hour, and that's almost 2 men every single minute.
That's a
And
that's
that's
a
the one
that's
on
a
record. There are some
do
not
you
on
get
record.
do you
Exactly.
understand? This is men, losing their lives to suicide, and it's beckons for us to speak about these things. We have a lot of women empowerment, women this, women that, but we don't have a lot of men this, men that. And I know it's not so easy for men. Our conversation last week talked about vulnerability, how men just shy away from it because when they do even attempt to do that, it is misinterpreted. It's almost as if backfires on them, and so they just withdraw back to their shells. But these are the weights that men carry that just lead to, what, I can't handle this anymore, and then they end it. So we are lending our voice to this topic in this month of November, which is why it's called the Movember Movement. And I'm going to play. We're not. We just don't want to talk about it alone, especially this month. We just don't want to talk about it. We want to take an action towards it as well. So I'm going to play you something that we're inviting you to be a part of. It's a challenge that we're inviting you to be a part of, which is to just make this as your own contribution towards creating awareness, one, but also lending your voice to the men in your life and in your space, to let them know that they do matter. All right. Watch this video. And after this video, we're going to bring on our guest for the day to talk about men, money, and well-being. There is a connection there. Our guest today is a psychologist and also a coach. And so it's a very resourceful coach as well. So we're going to look at what is the underlying thread between men, money, and well-being, and how can men, have a balanced outlook to life, to reduce this thought of ending their lives or carrying this burden that feels like they are alone, they are on their own. I've literally heard men say that to themselves, like, I know I'm on my own. I know nobody cares for me, not my wife, not my children, not my family members, not my workers. I'm on my own. But is that really true? Or is there something that they can do to think about things and see things differently? So watch this video as we invite you to join the challenge this month, and then we'll bring our guest on board.
The month of November is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. So, to every man out there fighting quiet battles, you are not weak, you are human. That's why at the Your Voice, Your Impact show, we're launching the 60 for Men challenge in this month of November. Take 60 seconds to speak, share 60 words, or record a 60-second message. Just anything to break the silence. Let's remind every man you matter, your story matters, and your voice matters. Join us for this challenge. Thank you very much.
Yes, dear men, you matter, your story matters. Let's, continue to say that so that the men in our lives will understand that. Without further ado, I will now bring up on stage our guest for the day, Dr. Charles Bassey. Hello, Dr. Charles. Good afternoon. Well, good evening from here, but good afternoon to you. Is it afternoon in Rwanda, or what time is it over there?
Is it from my end?
It's good afternoon from here in Rwanda. The time is just about 30 minutes after 2. So we are
okay.
1 hour ahead of
Nigeria. I see. Okay. And I am 3 hours ahead of Nigeria. So 2 hours ahead of Rwanda. Okay, that's fantastic. Grace, can you still hear us? It felt like you couldn't hear before.
Yes,
Are you back?
We can hear you.
Okay, fantastic. Okay. All right. So, Dr. Charles, how are you feeling today? Let's start with you that we have in front of us right now.
I feel very wonderful to be here to be discussing something that concerns me and my fellow brothers in human society. So it's an exciting time, really. And for the month of October, the month of October is usually for mental health globally. And then, of course, for the month of November, we try to drive that to say, let us dovetail and focus on the men, because men's life do matter. And it is a very important thing that this team is looking at men as a particular focus and building consciousness and awareness. And of course, enlivening conversations that should drive better well-being for all of us. And I said, if we focus attention on one aspect of the society, whether it's just children or women or men alone, and leave other aspects, what we are doing is that we are creating a table expecting you to stand on one leg. I don't know how that will happen.
Oh, that's okay. I'm loving it already. Absolutely. We cannot do anything in isolation, but at the same time, we can zoom in and zoom out and see how one part plays a role in the bigger picture. And I'm just going to share this quickly before we get into the conversation. I'll pass the mic on to Gracie. I'm a person of faith, and in church yesterday we were talking about how we are all different parts but one body, and what you just said now just kind of allude to that in a society we are different, we have different roles, but at the end of the day we are working all together to make the society better. So if one part of the society is suffering, it's invariably going to affect the other part. And so this is why it is important that we talk about this. And thank you for everyone, highlighting it, that October was loaded. Mental health, health all around. And then I love how it now segues into let's focus on the men. And, in most climes, men are regarded as the leader, as the head, as the top. And so if the head is not okay, I don't know what's going to happen to the body, right? So I'm looking forward to this conversation and just looking at what your perspective is as a psychologist yourself and as somebody who is vast in experience in dealing with humans. So I'll pass on the mic on to Gracie now to take us further in the conversation.
All right, sorry, I had to. Okay, so I'm super excited. Dr. Charles is vast, but I want you to let our audience, tell us a little bit about yourself and just take us on a journey of who you are and who you have become as a man, professionally and personally, if you don't mind sharing.
Thank you very much. I am Charles Bassey. I am a Nigerian, I'm an African, and I'm a citizen of the world. I grew up over 50 years ago in Calabar, in the ancient city of Calabar, and I was born into a family of five mothers. And I think it's important to put this anthropological context because cultural context and environment influences how we grow up and how we orient towards the things that we learn. And grew up in that environment, I went to a Catholic school where my expectation at the time, because I was an introvert, was to become a monk. But somehow, God had some other plans for myself. I know this hasn't been something I say pretty much often, but I went to a Catholic seminary for 6 years during my secondary education, and my aspiration was to be a monk, run away from all of the world and all of the women anywhere, and all of the problems of the world, and just focus on a cloistered, sequestered life. But by the time I was done, my elder brother, who was then a Catholic priest, told me, "You know what? I'm going to be a missionary priest. We can't afford to have two priests at home." And so we had to negotiate. And so he went ahead, and I decided to say, okay, fine, perhaps I could explore the world in a different way and fulfill purpose differently. So I enrolled and studied sociology. I've always been intrigued by the human mind. And why did I study sociology at the University of Calabar at the time? Because there was no psychology then at the school. And very few schools in Nigeria at the time offered psychology. University of Nsukka, I think, was the closest to me, but I did sociology. But I've always wanted to understand the human mind. Why do people take certain risks? That was a question that I've always even as a child. Why do some people take risks and some do not? And so after that, I went ahead to study some other things. I studied sociology at the University of London and also at the University of Roehampton, where I specialized in organizational psychology. I went ahead to also study risk management at the University of Leicester because I needed to tie the knot around human mind, human behavior, risk, and all of that. But my day job has been in the banking industry within the Central Bank of Nigeria over the last 21 years. Prior to that time, I worked as an industrial relations practitioner. I was a trade unionist with the Nigerian Labour Congress. It sounds strange, but I mean, I used to carry placards those days and shout a luta continua against hiking fuel crisis. But fundamentally, I discovered that my life purpose was when I sat down in 2005, 20 years ago, and wrote my life mission and my life vision. My life vision is to I envision a world of radiant people living their best. And then my mission is to discover, nurture, and enliven excellence for human development. And then, of course, I also looked at the pillars that should drive these. And so that informed my subsequent specialization, deepening my knowledge around coaching, around counseling, around offering support within the health institutions to people. Because we really think that a lot of people know the things that they ought to do. Many of us do know the things that we ought to do, but we also need to gain clarity about what steps to take first in order to do the things that we ought to do. And so part of me serving as a resourcefulness coach is to say to people, you are a resource, but beyond being a resource, how can you be creative enough to utilize or deploy yourself as a resource within the wider context of the universe? And that has been my journey. And it's been an interesting journey, really, where I get to also sometimes teach marriage course in my church last Saturday, teaching psychology, the psychology of marriage, and also parenting 101, where I bring psychological perspectives to the marital union beyond the Christocentric perspective, where we see marriage as a union between a man and a woman. Rather, from the psychologist's point, you see marriage as a union between two personalities who have agreed mutually to come together in order to thrive collectively and individually. And so that has been my journey. It has been an interesting journey, I would say, so far. So I'll pause for now. Thank you.
We love it. I love it. I mean, look at everything. I'm still enjoying, and I love the fact that you wanted to be a monk. Okay, we'll talk about that later. All right. Okay, over to you, Scott. Do you have questions for Dr. Charles?
Oh, wow, Dr. Charles, thank you so much for I literally didn't want you to stop, to be honest. I didn't want you to stop. I just wanted you to keep going, and for me, I think I don't even know where to start, because you've actually dropped a lot of but I would say my question for you would be to still on getting to know you a little bit more. You mentioned that you're when you were younger you had 5 mothers. So I would say, like, okay, as someone because me, I used to tell people I have 2 mothers, but now hearing someone has 5 mothers, I mean, like, how did that come by, and how did that impact you, or just like your background as a whole? How did that lead you into wanting to become a monk, be away from everything, be away from the women and all, like you mentioned, and now transitioning into who you are now?
Thank you very much, Scott, for that question. And it's important because many times people do not pay attention to their roots. And our roots, whether we like it or not, our roots are fundamental influences on our journey and our adult life. And that's why you see some people who are adult, but in reality, they are what I would call a child adult, because somehow there is a certain fixation in their childhood that they have carried along as they grow up. I grew up, my father had 5 wives. And the intriguing thing about that for me was the fact that all the children were all living together to a point that you probably wouldn't even know, except the mothers. Of course, there was tension, underlying tension, but there was something about sibling. We had down the road another of my father's very close friend had, I think, 3 wives, but my father anyway. There was always cutlass and machete exchange in their compound, in their family. There was never anything like that in mine. And for me, it was intriguing because we hardly said the word, oh, this is a child of my father. We didn't use, in Africa, you would describe the other person through paternal relationship. Right now, you won't even know my siblings and I, whether we are the same mom or the same dad. All of our parents, all of our mothers are dead. All of our fathers are dead. And I remember my mom died pretty much younger, and much about 25 or so years ago. And my dad's last wife, I would say my last mother in that context, died about 7 years ago. And I remember when I went to Calabar to do the burial, and people were shocked to see that she was not my biological mother. And so what that experience sort of taught me was that if you grew up in an environment where there is hostility, you learn to become hostile. If you grew up in an environment where you're taught to see the other person as human and be respectful, you learn respect. There was inherent competitiveness amongst us. It is normal, whether it is same parent or not. There was that. But I was drawn to the introverted side. And because we didn't have a lot of resources, my elder brother, who happened to be a Catholic priest, God bless his soul, he's passed. He passed away 10 years ago. We were not of the same mom, but we were the same father. And all over the world, people thought we were the only siblings that we had of each other. Because anywhere in the world, he was in the US. At some point, I'm going to the US. I was a signatory to his bank account. I grew up in that environment where giving of yourself and of your resources was something very natural, very normal. And that informed me to tell myself that the world is my brotherhood. The world is my community. And I must say that last week, Saturday, I was facilitating a session in an academy, and somebody asked me, what currency would you use to describe yourself or wealth if you were to choose a currency? And I said US dollars. And the person said, how much would you say you are worth right now? And I said, well, in a very modest manner, maybe $1 million. And I said, that doesn't mean that that's what I have in my bank account or in terms of bankable assets, but perhaps in terms of my potential, but that I wouldn't want to have in my bank account such amount, or in terms of my totality of my wealth exceeding that, because somehow in my head I would think that I haven't given something to, and so that is what I would consider to be a comfortable limit for my children and my family to feel comfortable to do anything they want to do in life. But beyond that, I should be able to pour back into society. And so my background taught me collaboration, taught me solidarity, taught me mutual respect, taught me to be inherently competitive against myself rather than against my siblings. And interestingly, when I joined the bank 21 years ago, and I started growing through my career, I didn't know that there was a colleague of mine who felt her job was to compete against me because I was always doing one program or the other. I finished my doctorate. I went in to do additional 4 master's degrees, additional qualifications. What I simply did was, when I got into the bank, I told myself, for every time that I become promoted to a new position, I was going to save money and earn additional degree. And that was simply what I did. However, she didn't know that was my plan. She thought I was just trying to compete with everybody. But I came from a home where I was the first graduate. My elder one didn't go to school. And somebody told me and said, why are you going to school so angrily? I said, because I'm going on behalf of my siblings. I refuse to go to school. That was my drive at the time. But somehow, about 3 years ago, she called me and said she wants to apologize to me. And I said, for what? She said, all of the past 17 years of working with you, I thought I could catch up with you, but every time I make an effort, you went geometrically away, and I found myself lost. And I had to sit her down, and I said, you know what? Both of us have been friends. There have been moments where I would see a course, and I said, look, there's this 6-week course or this 3-week course. Let's do it together. You pay for yourself, I pay for myself. When we do it together, it will be easier because we can share knowledge. I was like, oh, I don't want to do it. And then I get to do it. And then 6 months down the line, after I've done it, I use that knowledge from the course, and my work stands me out, and I get promoted, and I get recognized, and you come with a mindset of running after me. You will always run after me. So I started and I said, I have never competed against anybody in life. I learned it as a child. So I've learned to collaborate. And that is why I have 2 fundamental life quotes. The first one is something that is amorphous. And this is it. A candle that lights another candle doesn't lose any of its light. It makes the room shine brighter. And then the second one is a quote by the former United Nations Secretary General, Dark Amas Joe that says, "For all that has been, thanks. To all that shall be, yes." These are two fundamental life quotes for me that have influenced and designed who I am in life. A third one would be, most things in life are caught, they are not taught. You catch them. You don't wait to be taught. So I don't need to wait for you to make a mistake, for me to make a mistake, when I can learn from a mistake someone else has made. I can catch my experience from that mistake and run with it. And so this childhood of mine, this anthropological experience of mine, informed who I have been. And I will tell you just one more thing. When I was in the seminary, I was one of the maybe socially disprivileged because I was on orphanage scholarship. My dad had died by the time I was 10, but my mom was able to secure the orphanage scholarship from the state government of Cross River State for me to go to school. And so we had kids whose parents were commissioners, MDs of, judges and all that. When we were in class together, and it's not a boastful thing, but I never for once found myself competing with my classmates. I was competing with their parents in my mind. I saw their parents as a standard for me to measure my aspirations towards life. If your father was a judge, that means he was educated. I saw myself desiring to go to school, to be educated, to serve in the future in the same capacity. I couldn't compare myself with my classmates. We're in the same class. We're on the same platform. So what was there to compete against? So I had to use their parents as some measure of standard. And that is what I tell people when I have training sessions and leaderships for young people. And I say, who is the standard that you are using for your journey? Many of us do not even have any standard at all. And we just expect magic to happen. I'll pause for now. Thank you.
My goodness. Whoa. This is, and we've not even scratched the surface. So just opening up who you are is already dropping all of these amazing nuggets. It's just beautiful. And this is so good. This is so good. And I cannot wait for you to kind of connect the dots with what we're talking about today, because you are so rich in your experience, and because of the way you saw it quickly or earlier on in life, it has just set you on a pedestal of your own. And I love it. You're in competition with yourself, not with anybody. So anybody that's competing with you is actually competing with, I don't even know what they're competing with, because you're not even aware that they're competing with you. And that's so powerful. Now, being a man yourself and having, brothers, sorry that your dad, passed while you were younger. So we couldn't even now say, oh, maybe you got this from your dad. You didn't get it from your dad, who was supposed to be your initial role model, right? But how were you able to own your own? Like, where would you say this, was it from self, or did your mom play a role, or did somebody, or maybe a father figure while you were growing up, play a role in this mindset that you have? Or did you discover it from books? Like, where did it come from? Because again, it's like, I love what you said earlier when you said your roots. Knowing your roots and knowing some patterns is good, but sometimes there's a way of flipping things by your experience and by the people you surround yourself with. So what was it for you? What was it that set you on this pedestal and help you build this very unique mindset?
Thank you very much, EJ. Two things, and this is very critical for me. For 9 months, I was with my dad and my mom in the hospital in Calabar. He had bronchitis and other complications before he passed away. And so we were sleeping in the hospital environment. And I always like to put context to things. I was a 10-year-old child leaving my mom and my dad in the hospital for 9 months before he passed away. This was a general hospital before he was moved to a private hospital. There were injured people who were brought into the hospital almost on a daily basis. University of Calabar Teaching Hospital at the time. And I still remember he had a bedmate in the general ward, an elderly man to the left side who would take so much difficulty to even turn around to receive food from the granddaughter who was feeding him. And then somehow, after some days, after a couple of some time, the man passed away. And then I still have a picture of a man who was brought in from an accident scene. Blood was everywhere. And he was on a stretcher out there waiting for emergency attendance. And after battling through the hours, he passed away. At 10, I knew that when somebody is on the stretcher and they pull the cover over you, it means the person is dead. I knew that as a 10-year-old child. And so the very Saturday morning, I went home to pick food for my dad, and I got back to the hospital. I could not be allowed to enter his ward anymore because he was gone. They had pulled the covering over him. It struck something in me. It was the last time I was going to see him. And then after the whole experience and I started secondary school, my mom said something my father told her. I don't know why my dad said it, but my mom said my father told her that if she could sell the only property we had, which was a home we all lived in Calabar, if she could sell it to make sure I went to school, that she should do it, because he was certain I was going to rebuild that house. Well, he didn't have to sell it, and I built something more bigger than that. And all that. But that stuck with me, meant that somehow my father had seen that education was going to be a pathway for me to be liberated in life. That stuck with me. I never forgot that. And so that for me was one thing. The second thing was that I was privileged to have an elder brother, Reverend Father Anthony Tabasi, who passed away. He saw my character and my disposition. And because he was a Catholic priest, he had so many books in the house. And because I was introvert, I would not go out to play football with my friends. I would bury myself. As a teenager in secondary school, I was enjoying reading his philosophy textbooks, his theology textbooks. And I still remember reading a book called The Radical Jesus and the Power of Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent Peale at a time when I was a secondary school student. And sometimes I'll read his Pythagoras theory textbooks, Socrates books as a secondary school student because I just wanted to escape. And that opportunity sort of challenged me and opened my mind to say, you know what, you can actually chart a life for yourself. And that reading challenged me to believe that knowledge is liberating. Knowledge is liberating. And that is when I learned about man, know thyself. That Socrates writing, which is imputed to him, is the foundation of everything you ever would want to discuss about human beings. Whether it is money, whether it is wealth, whether it is relationship, whether it is mental health, whether it is well-being, it can fittingly be indexed by that simple, powerful, timeless wisdom. Man, know thyself. If you're embarking on a journey and two of you are to go on the journey and you know that you are physically challenged, the other person is not physically challenged, you cannot measure your distance by looking at the other person, no matter how much the other person encourages you to say you can do it. You must know yourself and tell yourself, what can I carry with me on this journey? And then what is my intent on this journey? When you dwell so significantly on this wisdom, man, know thyself, two things will emerge: intent and impact. Intent, What is your why? From that consciousness, from that realization of man, know thyself, it will lead you to understanding what your intent or what your why is in terms of your intention in a very deep level. And then impact, what are the outcomes or the results or the consequences you are expecting to see. So for me, that advice my father gave to my mom, said, sell the only house we have if there is need, and send this young man to school because he will build it. It never left me. It made me to be clear that education was my pathway to success in life. And because of education, I have been able to stand before people I would never dream of standing. And I remember, with all sense of modesty, I think it was September 2008, when I was invited. It was a Microsoft conference to the US. I just saw an advert on the internet that says, send an abstract if you are interested in participating in a conference. And I sent an abstract and I was chosen, all expense paid, to University of Irvine in California. And it was so surreal when I landed at Los Angeles airport. I saw a white man, as we would say in our place of Yibo, with my name like this on a paper, Charles Bassey. And I walked up and they drove me to my hotel. It would never have happened without education. And when I went to that conference, we were 22 of us, and I was the only African. So education set the path. From a very young age, I realized that education is not just formal education now. People must be clear when I say education. I'm talking about knowledge, because that knowledge is what I also gathered from reading books and being reflective and being calm. And then, of course, also having a supportive elder brother who saw that in me and was able to support me through the journey and at least trust me enough. So that has been the case.
Oh, so good. So, oh my goodness. So good. What a rich journey. What a blessed kids your children are, if you've got any, because like your story is so rich and it's so the perspective is so deep, and thank you so much for sharing that. Before I pass the mic on, then my next question will be around, so what do you feel from your experience, from your vast experience and your lived experience, like our last guest would always say, is what do you think is that thread? I mean, what you said just now about what Socrates said, that be man knowing yourself, is a fundamental one, but beyond that, actively, why do you think there is a connection between men, money, and well-being? Because from my own experience, to some extent, is that when money comes into the play, right? Maybe because of how men were groomed, in our society, in our climate, where it's groomed that, okay, women, you have to take care of the home. Men, you have to provide for the home. So it almost feels as if when men do not have money, it affects how they see themselves. And if while you see yourself is affected, it invariably affects how you act. I've heard stories of how when men are broke, that's when I don't know, it's as if there's a switch that comes on. And that's when they become aggressive, that's when they become violent, and then they start, maybe messing up with their partner and all of that. So where do you see that connection? And what are your views on it, on how men can maybe become more balanced in their view of it?
Thank you very much. How do I see the linkage between men, money, and well-being? It's very interesting. And what studies have shown is that money confers power and influence. Whether it's for a man or it's for a woman, money confers power and influence, but more so for the man. When I did a study for my master's and PhD, I did a study on food security, women and food security. And I was the first Nigerian to actually, from a sociological background, to delve into food security in terms of research. And on the day I was to defend my dissertation, I asked the poser to the audience, to the professors, and I said, imagine a pregnant woman who is 5 months pregnant with a 5-year-old child, a boy, a 3-year-old daughter, and a husband who works on a daily basis to earn a living for them to survive. She wakes up in the morning and she finds out that she has just 1 plate of food left in the house. Who should she give the food to? The 5-year-old son who is going to go to school, the 3-year-old girl who's going to be with her in the house so that she could eat and allow her to focus on house chores, to the husband who is going to do physical work to earn something, maybe a bricklayer, or should she consume it herself, who is pregnant for 5 months? Whoever she chooses to give to, it's okay. But research has shown she will be the last to consider herself, who is pregnant. That was what my research found. That women, in the course of supporting the household, think of themselves last. And men who have access to resources think of themselves first. And so having access to resources for a man gives him an elevated sense of control. There are 4 P's in this conversation I consider important, that I think if we look at them, it might somehow help us to, to maybe understand the role of the man. Number 1 is procreation. A man has a role in procreation and bringing the next generation to existence. But that any man who focuses only on his procreation ability is the kind of man that will abandon a woman because a woman took him for him. And so that is the first P, but it's the basic of the P in terms of the hierarchy of scale, whatever. That's very basic. The next one will be production. Production has to do with capacity to build something. It may be tangible, it may be non-tangible, but the capacity to continue to work, the ability to work, to be economically viable, a man needs that. So if a man's ability lies only in his capacity to procreate, he has not done anything. That is a natural ability, it's a biological thing. But he must go beyond that into being economically viable, being able to produce something. Then the next P would be protection. Protection has to do with creating a sense of psychological safety, physical safety, emotional safety for your family, for yourself, for the people that look at you. And the third has to do with provision. Provision is a broad perspective. Now, provision is beyond production in the sense that provision is that space where a man is able to inspire leadership, inspire followership amongst, you're providing leadership, you're providing direction, you're providing a culture. So for me, these 4 P's are very important: procreation, production, protection, and provision. And when you look at this, for many men, there is distortion in the way we were brought up. If you look at African context, in the way we were brought up, many men were brought up to get stuck at the procreation level. The woman is pregnant for you. She will sort herself out now. She has family, she has brothers. And so imagine for a moment, if a man is stuck at that level of procreation, he's an irresponsible man. There's no gainsaying about it. Because you have to get to that point where you have to also produce something beyond your semen, beyond your biological capability. And then you have to be able to protect. Imagine having a child placed at your disposal. I usually would use a construct of a triangle. I said, when a man and a woman, they are together, there is A, there is B, there is symmetric relationship. The A and the B are symmetrically relating. And now a child comes, the third. The A, the woman, relates with the child in a very strong way. The man, if the man does not relate with the child in a very strong way, what happens? He looks for other ways of expressing his time, his relationships. And so you see how that triangle that should have been very strong and well cemented becomes weakened. The line between A and C for the child is strong because the mother is very much available. And the father may even begin to compete with his child for attention of the mother, or feel that he's not receiving attention from the child, from the mother, because of the child. How sensible will that be? And so his behavior in that context can push him away, isolate the mother and the child, and then over time there is a role strain, there is a relationship strain, and he will now come back to blame the woman for, and then God forbid he is in a context where he latches on unhealthy relationships. He now finds comfort in those unhealthy relationships, relinquish the burden or the responsibility of caring for his own. And so the linkage for me is a man understanding what I would term as the role and the responsibilities of the man. What ties all of this together, whether it is money, man, mental health, is the underlying set of values. What ties all of these together? It's the underlying set of values. And I would dare say, why many men go through very strenuous mental health relationship or situations or poor well-being choices is because of lack of clarity about their underlying set of values. And I'm going to explain that further so we can see how this ties in. I've held sessions with people where I take people through what you test to enable people identify their top values that drive them. And I remember in one of my marriage classes I was teaching in church, when I took a couple through the value tests, the man's value, one of the values, tended to show that he loved to make money. The woman's value showed that she loved to serve, to do charity. And so when I was explaining the complementarity in their relationship and their set of values, I let them understand that imagine the woman loved to do charity and the man did not love to make money. There will be crises always in their house. But because the man is able to generate the funds and he sees the satisfaction it gives to his wife to touch lives, somehow it doesn't bring strain in their relationship. But if they didn't have an understanding of their values, he probably would see this woman as wasting his money, not in terms of charity. And the woman will not see that they had value to do charity successfully is hinged on the fact that the husband also has a value to make money. She probably will think that the man is just materialistic, only after money. So she will not see the symbiotic relationship in their sets of values. And so when men recognize and are clear about their values, they will know where to match break when the strain becomes too much. Or when society tells them, look at your mates, they are the ones who are making it and you are staying in the house. When I came into Abuja, I was living in the outskirts of town. And somebody told me, why are you living in the outskirts of town? Your mates, you guys are earning together. You guys started work together. He's living in Maitama. And I asked the person a question. Can you tell me in the person's lineage or ranking whether he's the firstborn or he's the lastborn? That I have younger ones in Calabar that I'm sending to school. So you can see my sense of, if I was not clear about my sense of values, I will feel disoriented. I'll feel that I have not achieved anything. But my values are grounded in generosity. I had younger one to take care of. And when I look back, the fact that the last one in my family graduated and is doing well, and because I sent her to school, and it gives me a lifetime sense of satisfaction than if I had used the money, deprived her that opportunity of going to school, and go and pretend to live in a highbrow area that I could not sustain at the time. And so what ties this for men is understanding and getting clarity. What are the values driving you? Are the values defined by society in a manner that puts you on a frog jump? You're always like jumping and trying to satisfy somebody else's interest. Because naturally, if you don't have clarity of values, you're already under stress. You're going to be anxious. But when you have clarity of values, even when there is tension, even when the Nigerian economy is dancing akimbo, because values are divine. Values tie you to the universe. It means that the moral economy that governs your life is far bigger, far higher than the political economy of the present. And so that gives you an anchor to be able to say to yourself, you know what? I think today, let me be realistic. Instead of my child going to school in 2 districts away from me, and I'll be worrying about paying 500,000 naira for school bus, let me check this school that is close to my environment, to the house, that I will not have to pay that much. It may not be a highbrow school like the other one, but I could get a supplementary lesson teacher to support. At the same time, I will be having some more savings. It is because you have values that you have allowed to influence and redesign your thinking. If you don't, that is how you will go to your bank, to the cooperative in your organization, to your brother, to your friends. Today, you are doing urgent this for school fees, urgent that for house rent. When they have failed you and you have messed up all of that relationship, you enter loan apps. You now quick loan, you take it. And the next moment, when they are beginning to call your friends to complain that you put their name and their contact and they block you, you become scared. You go to another loan app to take the loan from here to pay here. You are already in a psychological mess. At that point in time, urgent therapy, because coaching may not help you at that time. You need urgent therapy. And so being very clear about one's core values that drive you as a human being will help you to know the stress levels you can tolerate, the risk you can take, the relationships that you can build and let's go. Many of us carry redundant relationships in life, and many men do that. You have known one girl like that long before you got married. She has gone. You have also gone ahead with your life. Life battered her somehow. You guys meet somewhere, and you think that it is the best thing that has happened after sliced bread. She brings trouble, and you are ready to use your little finances you have used to invest in your life, and you waste it on it. And this is what I tell people. Because of my experience in life, before I got married, I sat down and wrote a marriage manual, what I would say, technically, something very private to me, to say to myself, I may die anytime, but I would not like my children to live a standard of life lesser than at the time I died and left them. And so, before I got married, I had already said I was going to take an insurance cover for all of my kids when they turn 2 years old. So that by the time they are 17, the insurance should be able to send them to a Nigerian public school. It is my choice, based on resources, to decide whether I want to send them to a private university or to some other country. But I wanted to give them the basic so that they can have at least the basic. And so I have 4 kids. So for every one of them, immediately they turned 2 years, I knew I needed to take an insurance cover, a 15-year insurance cover. Why did I choose 2 years? Because somehow, by my definition or calculation, it is around the age of 16, 17, they'll be entering university. So that's why I chose 2 years to start the 15-year insurance cover. That way, my daughter turned 17 this year. She entered the university last year. When the money matured this year, I didn't have a burden to pay her school fees. And so I didn't have to worry, even though I remember 15 years ago when I took the insurance cover and I told my wife, this is the insurance policy in case anything happened to me. God forbid, I won't collect it. I told her, I said, I am not going to die. I am just saying I don't want you to suffer. That is all. So that is the basic thing. And so financial planning will help to reduce mental health stress. And I tell men, planning, it's very broad, at the same time also very detailed. If you are doing a 9-to-5 work for the rest of your life, it's okay. It's not a crime. But please, if you have time for a man, try not to have children beyond 45 years old. And I'm very point blank. I said, why? Because you are because when you retire by 60, the child will be about entering the university. And so the highest you spend your retirement money to send a child, if you should even at all, which you shouldn't, is 4 years of undergraduate university. But target a point that when you are retiring, your resources and because your health will deteriorate, whether you like it or not, as you grow older. Anything that you use over time depreciates in value. The human body depreciates in value. It's what it is. It's a natural evolutionary situation. And so prepare to have medical facilities or medical support system by investing for the retirement period. These decisions will be influenced and informed by the sets of values that you have that govern your life. So values are very fundamental in tying how you see money, because money is a store of value. Money is not just about what is in your bank. Money is what you can do with yourself, with your time, and also a tool you can turn it into, either for investment and all that. What happens if you're just retiring and at the same time, if you feel that you have lost your spouse as a man? I remember talking to a set of, I think, directors who were just retiring, and I told them, I said, it's okay if you have lost a partner and you want to look for a partner, but please don't go and look for an 18-year-old. And you expect the 18-year-old not to want to have a child. When you are 58, 57, the 18-year-old has a right to seek for a child. but you're going to put yourself in emotional stress. This is somebody that maybe in the last 10, 15 years of your life, you have never had to hear a child keep you awake in the night. And then at the age of 58, 60, that is when your 18-year-old new wife just had a baby. And you start a process that you had long retired from 20 years ago. You are already exposing yourself to mental stress. So understand your values. Why don't you go and look for maybe a mature person, a widowed or something also, who wouldn't bother you with childhood? So, because at that point in time, your value should be driven by companionship and all of that. So I'll just leave it there. Thank you.
Grace, over to you, please.
Okay, Scott, you are going to say something.
Yes, I was going to say something because there is a lot here for me to unpack, especially as of course, let me say, as a fellow man, and to be fair, Dr. Charles, it feels to me like I'm in a classroom because every single thing you've said resonates with me, and but the thing I want to ask here is that, you see, interestingly, we are bringing an almost different perspective to this subject, because when we talk men, money, and well-being, men's mental health in general, the focus majority of the time is how the external forces, the marriage, the society, and all that, how they influence man's mental health indirectly. How it is majorly this element that causes men's mental health to deteriorate. However, in our own conversation here, we are talking about the man himself, how he himself puts himself in danger by not knowing his own values and all of that, right? And that's just mind-blowing, because man, know thyself. When you know yourself, then majority of all these external elements or all these external factors would not push you to the brim, would not break you in a way. But then the question I would just like to ask you is, for those men that are listening to us now, and even for me as a person, as we're learning here, how would you say, for a man now, how does a man know when he is, how does a man now, establish a balance between contentment and being too laid back? You see, in the sense that, I've known my value. My children can, for example, to just use an example from what you said, my children can go to a public university, they still will be fine, right? But then in his actual capacity, he is someone that can actually afford to send them abroad for their school. You get what I mean? In this kind of instance. Or is someone that could, instead, maybe take, for instance, the life insurance instance you cited, maybe monthly for the insurance, he can save or invest 500 for them. But in the course of, I'm trying to, play it safe and all, he's saving 200. You see, now there is already an imbalance. He's not attaining his potentials. So how do men know when there is a balance between knowing their values and securing themselves and playing it too safe?
Thank you very much, Scott. You hit it right on the nail, because it's so easy for somebody to become complacent and to say, you know what? Yeah, Charles says, don't stress yourself, your values. And so we'll go back to the 4 P's, the provision part. And the provision part challenges you to ask yourself, as a man, are you truly sincere in terms of providing for your family? Are you providing for them for today or for their future? Our parents raised us up for their future. We were raised up by our parents for our parents' future. That means when they grow old, we'll take care of them. Studies, knowledge, experience show today we have to raise our own children for their own future, not for ours. For our own children's future. And what is our children's future? For a man, in order to save yourself from tending towards complacence, is to ask yourself, are you giving your family, within the bounds of your resources, the best option to make them most competitive in life? Because they are not going to be competing with themselves. They are going to be competing with unemployment. They're going to be competing with godfatherism. They're going to be competing with political exploitation. They're going to, the way you would raise up a girl child and the way you raise up a boy child will be different. Not in terms of just provisioning, but in terms of empowering. One of the things I try to, because I have one girl and 3 boys, one of the things I try to consistently talk to my daughter around is that I don't want you to focus on academics and come out as an excellent student and as a poor social animal. And so when she was entering as year 1 student, I said, if there is an opportunity to learn leadership alongside school, learn. All I want you is don't fail in your grades. Don't also be standing around the boundaries and the borders because you might dip. But make sure you take opportunity. So when she won elections as the financial secretary of the Student Representative Council as a year 1 student, I knew that she was able to balance. And when the results came out at the end of first year, I said, okay, fine, you have done well. So we can celebrate both wins from you developing your leadership and also developing. And so for a man, in order to avoid falling into complacence, the man must ask himself, is he providing, is he provisioning them with the power for them to compete in a world that he himself will not be there when that time comes? If he does that thinking, because he needs to ask himself that question, am I preparing my children? I tell myself, I said, if I have 4 kids, this is a personal opinion. It's not grounded in research. But if I have 4 kids and all of them wants to do business, I will tell one of them, go and work in the government. I will encourage one of them to go and work in the government. But I'll make sure that I have provisioning for him so that he will not steal government money. He will build ethical conditions. But the idea is for him to understand and serve as a standard bearer for his other siblings who are doing businesses and around the world to understand that government is meant to serve the interests of the whole. That many times families do not even understand that we have people we have families when they meet to discuss, because nobody is coming from a government perspective to share the things in terms of government service and government machinery. They are disprivileged. They don't have that information. I have worked in the government. I've also interacted with people and supported businesses outside of the government. So I tell people, get somebody in the government. Let the person mark that time. It teaches a different kind of discipline that you can also transfer to your siblings. The same way I will also encourage a child to get into business. It teaches a different kind of discipline. So imagine having a twin. One is doing business, one is working in the government, and able to share knowledge with each other. They will be stronger and more successful than if they were just in one line or the other. That's just a personal thing. And so what I would say to men who are listening in this context There are external factors and forces that will always be there. Some of them, or most of them, you will never have control over. How the world sees you, how the society sees you, how they define you, you can never. There are siblings and there are friends that you give them urgent 2K, you answer their urgent 2K or calls for 6 months. The day that you come into a spiritual rebirth and realize that you were not empowering them, you were disempowering them, and decide to say to them, come, what is it that you really want to do in your life? Can we sit down and let me see how I can help you? There is an opportunity I would like to link you up with. I don't have the money to give you. He will forget all the past experiences. And so, but should that be a problem for you? Why should it be? It shouldn't be. But you should be thankful that you have been able to get to that point where you can make that engagement, where you can discuss with this person. And so my advice men would say, rather than say, oh, this is the least I can do, put your money under the bed, and one cleaner will now come one day and leave the mattress and see that you have been lying on top of the bed even when you are ill or sick. You are not empowering. You're not meeting the responsibility of provisioning, because provisioning, like I said earlier, has to do with being a true leader for the people that you're meant to lead and empowering them to see in you a leader that is both inspirational and supportive. So the question I will ask the men is, that much that you are doing, is it the best that you can do? And is it likely going to lead to the best of results that will make those who are looking up to you competitive in tomorrow's world? Not in your world, but in their own world. Thank you.
Grace, please, because I'm short for words.
At this point, I don't know if you're going to, anyone that's going to watch this, the best you can do for any man in your space is to share this video. If you truly care about the men in your space or in your environment, share this video. It's much, I would say this is like a Harvard, I don't know. It's the rendition for me, it's the presentation for me. It's not, you're talking to the soul. I'm a woman, but I'm hearing it in my spirit, man. And what you have put together is something that I would say to any man that if you listen to it, there's going to be an aha moment for you, and you might just even get it. Like you said something in the beginning, you said it's not what you learn or something, it's what you catch. So for me, I'm hearing a lot of things that might just be making some people stuck. Talking about, I was writing so profusely, I was just, writing, and I was just seeing some missing links, even with the men in my space and in my environment. I could just tell that, okay, this one has stopped in the procreation level. Like, yes, I got it, I'm going to do it, and that's it. And I can see this one, in the production level, that's okay, let me work, let me do what they say, for you to be a man, you have to work, you have to do all of that. And then, the protection, the part, you have broke it down to a point where a man will just watch it and know, they can tell where they are and what they need to do to get to the next level. And I don't think, okay, where they always say that we women would like to hijack. I'm taking this and I'm running away with it, because I'm asking myself that, okay, beyond procreation, beyond all of these things, what is it for me that I need to take from this? And then you talked about values, and the illustration you gave about a man and the wife, the charity and everything. I could just relate, and I'm like, I can imagine the fight in a house where the case is not what you have given. And it's not even just about, it's also about relationship, like all of us, seated, and the team at Your Voice, Your Impact, knowing some of the values that we individually have and how we can, connect for our own good. I mean, there's a whole lot to unpack, even though we're talking about men. I mean, it's the Movember movement. Men, this is for you. I'm just so excited. You can touch how I'm feeling. Thank you so much, Dr. Charles. We can go on talking, and it's your power of storytelling. You're just telling us these stories. You're not just a purely, some doctors, when they are teaching, that lecture room that you're okay, where next, please. That's not the case. You've brought academics, you've brought storytelling, and you've brought experience, life experience. You put everything together, and I'm loving it. Thank you so much for honoring our invitation, and most importantly, thank you for using your voice for impact. You have blessed our viewers, those that would watch this now, those that would watch this even 20 years from today, or even 30 years from today, because as far as I'm concerned, this is timeless. This is timeless. Thank you. I'm just going to appreciate you. I'm sure we're going to wrap up very soon, but I just needed to unpack this whole thing that you're that is inside of me, just so you know that you are blessed, not just the men out there, but me, listening to you right now. Thank you so much. And before I just have one very quick question before we wrap up. You talked about how important is financial intelligence, and is there a way to be financially intelligent? Because they say if you want something, you go seek it. Some people don't even know what it means to be financially intelligent, and the first step to take, maybe that should be a bonus that you can just throw out there for people that are even saying that, okay, it's so easy for you to say, maybe this, you had the opportunity and all of that, and then maybe you can just give that bonus out there before we go.
Thank you very much. For every man who wants to ensure that he has a mentally healthy life, he has to be financially literate. You may have a professor in management and in accounting, but you're actually not financially literate. And what does financial literacy mean? First, I would say the first dimension would be what is it that you are capable of doing or monetizing or transforming into value that somebody can pay for. That is really the starting point. And many people, because they work and they gain an income, they see the income as the consummate measure of their capacity or of their ability. But they can do a lot more than that income they earn. And so it's important that you first take stock of what is it that you can do to earn money from. It could be in sharing your knowledge. It could be in supporting someone else, whatever. There may be some stuff that you can actually monetize them. It doesn't have to be in $1,000, $10,000. It could be built upon. So taking stock or inventory of your monetizable value or competencies is the very primary point of financial literacy, because that way it gives you a sense of value of what you can plan for your life and the risk that you can even take on your job. Otherwise, you would be so consumed by working for the external satisfaction than for something that gives you purpose and meaning. The second point, or the second dimension, would be the resources that you have had access to. How are you deploying them? I'm not even talking about breaking them down into different dimensions. How are you deploying them? And this is also still why values are important. Because when you are deploying your resources, you're going to deploy your resources in a manner that reflects your set of values. If you're somebody who believes in protecting and provisioning for your family as a man, you would set aside a certain level of your resources that will meet that provisioning outcome. And that is why taking out an insurance, for instance, it's a long-term thing. But you start from today, but you're expecting to the result in the long term. It is something that you have to do because of your resources. So sometimes how you deploy your resources, you have to look at it. What do I deploy in the short term, which is to meet my daily needs, as the case may be, in the medium term, also in the long term, so that over time, I may even forget about that investment and wait for it to mature. And when it does mature, you could see how that could even be a breakthrough. And so that is the second dimension. The third dimension is seek financial advice from a professional. There are two ways of knowing things. One is that you know it yourself, or two, you know where to get the answer from, whether from the internet or from a professional. There are only two ways of knowing things. That you know it yourself, or you know where to seek the answer from. There are certain investments that may come to you that look very beautiful, but they will burn you. I have had to see people who took their entire gratuity, income at the point of retirement, to go and invest in a single business they had no knowledge about. Less than 1 year down the line, they are a psychological wreck. It is not in your old age that you should take certain risks that you never even thought about taking in your youthful years. So you test the waters. I have been burned through my process of financial investment. I mean, I'm like, oh, my friend is doing this. Oh, let's partner. And money going down the drain. And I've learned through that process. But I've also, this is something, the risk I took when I was much younger, I will not take those risks now. So now I'm a lot more very critical, and I also try to diversify my investment options so that one can compensate for the other. So financial literacy lies in understanding your ability or your capacity or what you are valued or the value you can bring or even monetize. Understanding how your values drive your resources, allocation and deployment. And then, of course, your readiness to open your mind to getting professional financial advice. People, if you know that you need to invest in real estate, you need to ask yourself, why should I be investing in real estate? It's not because the land is available. You want to invest. And you don't even know. Yeah, somebody says, bring it, and you see the price is a good price. Meanwhile, it's a land under tension wire. Tomorrow, government will say land is not meant to be on this lane, or is a swampy area. So these are options that we need to look at. But the fundamental thing, we're back to the issue, man, know thyself. If you know that money does not stay in your hand, I would say, please, maybe go for fixed securities that you will not, or you look for someone who can be your financial manager to manage that for you at a fee, because the person will multiply your money. But at the same time, I've had a friend tell me, I have this money. I said, bring it, because I know that friend is going to blow it. And when the person looked back and how much she had kept under my custody, I said, you know what, when I got this your money, I I knew that you were not going to come for it for 3 months, and I was going to drag you. So this is an interest that I accrued from that because I ensured it was fixed. So there are people within our circles that we know they're too progressive in their expenditure. When I say progressive in their expenditure, it means that if 1 million enters, the need for 2 million expense comes. If 2 million enters, the need for 3 million expense comes. If it's 5 million, so it happens to most of it. Happens to me too. But I've learned.
Scott is admitting. So you're like that.
So you need to ask yourself, and that is why sometimes you tell yourself, you know what? Once an asset comes to this, if you need to, maybe you say you want to convert it to a foreign currency and make sure it's safe somewhere, you make it difficult for you to access a particular amount of money. It helps you, and so that even if it's your money, but the process of accessing it, you just tell me, so I beg, let that process rest. Thank you.
Alrighty. EJ, I think we need to close this show.
This has been, honestly, this has been fantastic, and I'm so grateful that I was well enough to be on this, because if you're paying me well, right? Although I would have seen the replay, but just being here in the moment and processing in the moment and seeing, like Grace said earlier on, even seeing ourselves in it, because what you've done here is also help us see through the window of the eyes of men. And so it positions us as women to be able to support them better. Meaning that if I have a man in my circle now, I can have these conversations with them to help them see, because again, some people are oblivious to these things. And so for the ones that are reasonable enough to listen, we can have these conversations and guide them and help them see how they can begin to think in this direction, to say, have you considered this? Have you seen this? Have you seen? So thank you so much. Like, we cannot thank you enough, because you've just brought in so much wisdom, so much experience, so much academia, all in one. You be full package. Thank you so much, Dr. Charles.
Thank you so much.
God bless you. God bless you real good. Guys, I don't know about you, but we are full and overflowing. And if you missed this, just go and catch the replay. The replay will be up on our YouTube channel in a short while from now. So please go to that YouTube channel and binge on it. And when you're going, don't just go to watch as if you are watching a movie. No, carry your notebook and write, because there's so much to unpack from this conversation. And I feel like if we will carry this replay and take it to your own group, like, you can literally build a mastermind of this episode. So just sit down with your friends. Okay, pause. That thing is said. How are we implementing it? And how are we keeping each other accountable? I promise you, if you do that now, by June next year, when we'll be celebrating our 3rd year, you will come back and thank us that, you see that person you brought in November 2025. He did us good.
He changed it. He changed something in my mind.
You know,
He twisted me. He did me like this, and yay!
You know, EJ, just to buttress your point, I'd like to throw this to Dr. Charles, because obviously we've only been on this show for 1 hour, on this episode for 1 hour 30 minutes, and I'm sure from the wealth and from the, not even wealth now, from the ocean of knowledge that Dr. Charles has to share, I'm sure we've not even tapped into, we've not even touched 0.000.1% of the amount of knowledge that this that Dr. Charles has. So therefore, I'd like before we round up, if Dr. Charles could let our viewers know, where they can, if they want to learn more, if they want to know more of what you do, maybe, how can they, get to see more and learn more to further expand their knowledge on some of the things we've talked about today.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Scott. And thank you very much, Energetic EJ. And thank you, Grace, so amazing, for having me this afternoon. It's been a pleasure. When Grace reached out a couple of days ago and said, "Oh, this is being planned. Will I have time?" I was looking at, because I was going to fly. I flew into Kigali yesterday, and I was going to have a session, of course, during the week. And I said, oh, I think I can create that time. And I'm always interested in building my generation, and particularly young men. The reason I'm interested in building young men for our future is that if we do not build responsible young men for our future, they will abuse our women that we have empowered. And that is what I will not want to happen. I want boys to grow up old where they can see women as collaborators, not as objects in any way at all. And that's what I want to. So I am available on most social media, like LinkedIn. So people can follow me on LinkedIn. You'll see Charles Bassey, a PhD. You just search for me. You'll see my face there. One handsome looking guy with an eyeglass. Yeah, just beside. I work full time. I work full time in a bank. I didn't highlight that, but I'm currently an executive director in Nirsal Microfinance Bank. And so just Googling that itself will pop up. My social media, LinkedIn is very active. I periodically do share nuggets on my Facebook page. I've had a few people reach out to me to say, I follow you, and I know you don't post very regularly, but whatever you do, my wife and I and the children, we just sit back and said, Charles has dropped it. Let's dissect it and all of that. But generally, I work with people in a very selective manner by the side in terms of providing coaching and counseling, just to support people who are having challenges either in relationship or in terms of even their work spaces. Sometimes we have a lot of work relationship. It was the work context that made me, after my first master's in psychology at the University of Roehampton, to specialize at the University of London in organizational psychology, because I wanted to understand the workplace. Because we all work. We all work in our respective lives, whether it's digitally, virtually. As an entrepreneur, sometimes I've worked with people who run their businesses, and they are telling me how much challenges they're having dealing with their staff. And I have to step in to work with them to find solutions and to empower them. And sometimes I see it, I said, oh, yeah, the fact is you're the visionary, but you're still running the institution as a visionary, as if you're on your own. And you don't allow others to buy into the vision. And sometimes you didn't also sell the vision to others. And so sometimes we get stuck because the vision is in our head. And you expect everybody that works with you to come into your head and extract the vision when you have not effectively communicated that. So sometimes I work with people to let people, you know what, let us take you into the lab and dissect that, your brain and your vision, and extract it so that we can then take others into the lab and pour little dosage of that into their own head. And then everybody can say, okay, fine, we are in a shared vision environment. So I'm available on social media. On Instagram, I think I'm C Bassey. That's CEEBSSEY. C Bassey. I'm searchable on the internet, and that's me generally. And I'm very much open to collaborating with groups, with people, with individuals, to ensure that we empower people through knowledge, through self-awareness, and through value building to live happier, more fulfilling, and created life. I think I talked about I think on Saturday, I talked about the 3 identities in a session I was facilitating. I talked about the programmed identity, remembered identity, and created identity. We all grew up with a set of programmed identity because we are programmed to be somebody somewhere by circumstances of life, as research has shown. And then we also, in the course of our interaction with people, do certain things that give them the impression that this is what they think about us, the remembered identity. But the real deal, if you want to be considered a resourceful person, is to operate within the created identity. Because within that context of created identity, you have clarified your values, you know what you want, you're more self-aware, and you're able to explore and open your universe to accommodate the diversity of experiences to create a more positive and predictable outcome for your life and for things that you do. And that's what I charge people. Work on building your own created identity and review that identity periodically and see how you're faring and make it better. So I'm very happy to have been part of this conversation this afternoon. And I do hope that our viewers will continually challenge themselves to be more conscious of their strengths, of their weaknesses, and be able to clarify the boundaries of things they have influence over and externalities that they may not be able to influence or totally control, and create that identity they want for themselves and run with that successfully. Thank you.
What a final checkout. Please let us no more talk. Thank you so much, Dr. Charles Bassey. You are amazing. God bless you. God increase your wisdom. God continue to increase your impact. Thank you for impacting us so beautifully. You've impacted us today. Thank you for using your voice for impact, like Grace said earlier on. And thank you for sharing on Your Voice, Your Impact show. Guys, until we come your way again in the next one. This one, I'm not sure we'll wait till next Monday because there'll be pop-up sessions as well. But till the next one, please drink water on top of this one first. We'll be right back with another episode in this month of November with the Movember movement. Remember, we are challenging you, and we're going to close out with that challenge again, just to remind you that we want you to take action, not just words. Thank you so much, Mr. Charles, and thank you, my co-host. God bless us all. See you on next week. Bye-bye.
The month of November is Men's Mental Health Awareness Month. So, to every man out there fighting quiet battles, you are not weak, you are human. That's why at the Your Voice, Your Impact show, we're launching the 60 for Men challenge in this month of November. Take 60 seconds to speak, share 60 words, or record a 60-second message. Just anything to break the silence. Let's remind every man you matter, your story matters, and your voice matters. Join us for this challenge. Thank you very much.